I think that the when we talk about the myth busting side of this, the first thing that would come to mind is this concept that academia would sell, which is if you can play jazz, you can play anything, and that's not really very close to true at all. And I think that the worst part of that myth is that the people that are playing jazz believe that, because then they actually do themselves a disservice. Every style of music, if you dig into it far enough, is a lot more difficult than people give it credit for. And I'll jump right into what it is that I do, playing a lot of pop music and a lot of country music. Those styles, unlike jazz, there's no place to hide. There's no place to hide. You can't hide in a flurry of stuff. Everything is so angular and so clear that when you're not doing the right stuff, it just becomes blatantly obvious to everyone. And so you can't just take, well, I'm a jazz drummer, I can just dumb it down and do this. No, it just doesn't work that way. You have to, any style that you want to get good at, you have to study it. And if you'll study it, well, the first thing is you have to respect it. And if you respect it, then you'll study it. And if you study it, then you'll learn what the things are that make that style unique. I had very limited access to country music. And so it's very easy to kind of go, oh, that's just some hillbilly stuff. And, you just kind of play some boom chick and you'll be good. And, what I find is that, a lot of jazz players are very unprepared to play country. And if they don't realize that they're not, that's the worst part. It's okay to be a jazz player and go, I don't know anything about country music. Teach me something. I'll go, let's do it.
Yep.
But if they go, oh, I got it. I got jazz, so I can play that easy. That's where the big mistake is.
Jim, I'm so glad you brought up respect. I think respect and humility of sort of knowing your lane, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you need to work on. For example, when we're talking about rock and jazz, people playing rock, Dave Grohl, Phil Rudd, and let's say Steve Jordan. If you wrote out the parts that those three players play on paper, they look really simple, right?
Yeah, they look really similar.
Similar, like same beat. Like if rock beat 1 in a lot of cases, or rock beat 2, rock beat 3, whatever. There is such a big difference between notes on a sheet of paper and feel, authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that for us and for myself, I'm constantly amazed that people miss this point, that you have to appreciate a genre. You have to listen to a genre.
Yeah.
If you don't listen to rock, how are you going to be good at rock?
Right. Yeah, it's true, man. And even though I grew up with rock and roll and I play rock and roll, and obviously I'm a rock drummer, I'm a country drummer, I'm a blues drummer. I'm just a working drummer. But when I see a drummer that is a pure rock and roll drummer, and I'll give you a couple examples of some people. My good friend who lives here in Nashville, Ray Luzier.
Fantastic drummer.
I mean, Dean Castronovo is another one who's also a friend of mine. And, when you stand next to these guys when they're playing, I mean, listen, I hit the drums pretty darn hard, okay? And I can promise you the time that I did a Rascal Flatts and it was Rascal Flatts and Journey Crossroads. You can look it up on the internet and find it. But playing double drums with Dean, I felt like I was hitting the drums like a small child next to the way that he hits the drums, And I mean, he's such a rocker and he's such a star when you're on stage. It really makes you go, okay, I thought I was pretty good at this, but this guy's making me just want to watch him do what he does, man. Absolutely amazing. And, you know, that to me is an example of, okay, you know, like I play rock and I am a rock drummer, you know, and I'm going, okay, you know what? I play rock, but I'm not a rock drummer like those guys are a rock drummer. To me, they've put the 10,000 hours into being a rock player that is just like, man.
If I can play devil's advocate for a minute, what would you say to someone who possibly said to you something like, well, hey, you weren't born in Cuba. You'll never play like an Afro-Cuban artist, or you're not from New Orleans, so you'll never actually be able to play a really swampy New Orleans groove. How would you sort of clear up that kind of misconception and sort of clarify, I guess, the advantages and the direction that this could take?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is that all I can do is do my best. You know, I'm not going to be Stanton Moore because, you know, Stanton is Stanton and he grew up there. And I think there's, as much as I can play some of those styles, there's always going to be something that I could learn from someone who is absolutely entrenched in it. It's the difference between what I was just talking about with the rock drummers. And, you know, I think the same is true there. That doesn't mean that I can't, from a professional standpoint, do my best to be able to cover the bases, which is what that was really the basis of the book, Survival Guide for the Modern Drummer. Do you notice that the title wasn't Mastery of All Styles by Jim Riley? That would have been a lot bigger book, and I wouldn't have been able to write it, you know? So it was the idea of writing a book called Survival Guide, because I was like, listen, this is enough. If you can do this much of this style, then you're going to be able to survive and advance. And my recommendation is always learn more and get more into the music.